If United don't win, the pressure that's going to pile on the club, I'm telling you.
They probably won't second until the international break next time around, will they?
This is a big period between now and the next international break. Is season defining, maybe job defining.
Transfer window may be closed, but chaos lives on at Chelsea. In fact, it reigns supreme. Apparently they want to buy each other out.
But neither wants to sell to the other. And I'm told there's almost no chance they can find middle ground and continue to work together. Is it a coincidence that Eghbali was so keen to get shot of Raheem Sterling when he was Todd Bowley's first signing as sporting director? If he tears it up at Arsenal, they look even more ridiculous.
What a big week it is as well for the Gunners.
I think Arteta will be furious that players are missing through injury and suspension.
But I think this highlights, again, the failings of Arsenal in the transfer market not to bring in a number 9. I think it is a problem for Arsenal. I think it's a huge opportunity for Spurs to send out an early season statement, because I've not been overly impressed with Ange Postecoglou's side so far. The onus is really on Spurs to go and try and win this game.
Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook, and the former Wimbledon, Manchester United and Tottenham forward Terry Gibson. We will talk about how the North London derby will be won this Sunday at lunchtime. Big fixtures to get into as the Premier League returns. I would just like to say that Harry Kane, 68 goals from 100 caps. How many goals do you think Ronaldo got in his first 100 caps for Portugal?
512. No.
Go on.
No, I'd probably say, 25?
Less.
I mean, he wasn't playing as number 9 then, was he?
25. Go on.
I'd say 50.
50? 37.
37.
37. So he's a good 30 plus ahead of where Ronaldo was. And actually, if you look at what the caps to goals ratio now, Ronaldo sort of caught up in terms of his ratio. He's scored a lot more goals since. Interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Harry Kane gets a lot of grief, and we have to admit, I mean, no doubt, he's a fantastic centre forward for club and country. He gets there because he can be accused of going missing in the finals and semi-finals in the past for his country, and the fact that he was at Spurs such a long time and Spurs didn't win anything. But there's no doubt his 2 goals against Finland were just fantastic. But we take them for granted. But they're classic Harry Kane finishes.
He said that actually, didn't he? Yes. He didn't say he'd take it for granted, but he just said, I understand the criticism because I've raised expectation to such a level.
His 68 and 100 is outrageous. So, Spurs fan, I wished he was still at Spurs. Yeah, particularly this weekend.
And as a Manchester United fan, you wish he went there. Yeah,
it's funny. I still think at times last night it was a little bit like watching an old man. Two brilliant finishes, but he wasn't the Harry Kane at his sharpest. And I do wonder. This is going to be controversial. I know we got Kev Hatchard on the podcast at the weekend. He won't be happy. Is that as a result of the fact he's now playing in the Bundesliga, which is not quite as intense as the Premier League?
Well, actually, he said he's at his peak in terms of physical and mental conditioning, and he said that it's so demanding playing for Vincent Kompany that you have to press so high, press intently all the time, that he feels that's the way that football's going to go, and that's how England are going to play in the future.
So something he's going to have to become accustomed to doing.
I think he did look accustomed
to it.
I
think the Bundesliga is tough. I mean, I would take Alex's point if Bayern had won the league again by 10 points. But the fact Leverkusen was so good last year and Bayern didn't have a good season, and they do have a lot of tough games in the Bundesliga.
I'm just trying to get a nibble off Kev, really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think nibble off quite a few people describing a 31-year-old as an old man, especially someone as nimble as you, suggesting that he wasn't moving correctly. We start down at St Mary's. Our live game on Saturday sees Saints take on Beleaguered United. The last time Manchester United lost away at Southampton, Ryan Giggs was in the starting lineup. The Neville brothers were in the starting lineup. So too was Ruud van Nistelrooy and Roy Keane. Do you know what year it was? Give you a clue. It was the last flight of Concorde. Does that help?
2004?
Beyonce released her solo album, her first one.
No.
2003.
Correct. I knew you'd get it with Beyonce. It was 2003. Do you know who got the winner?
BT?
He did. James Beattie, 1-0. United can't afford for that to happen again, can they?
No, with the start that they've had, and there was a lot of goodwill for Ten Hag at the end of the season after winning the FA Cup, and the United fans were aware of the troubles that were going on behind the scenes at the club and in terms of on the field stuff with the injuries that they'd suffered. So he had a lot of goodwill, but it's rapidly deteriorating, that goodwill. I think losing 3-0 at home, getting a drubbing against Liverpool, losing at Brighton has put this game on it's on the radar now as must win. Man United.
And I think one of the issues that we noticed when we were watching the game against Liverpool was that sort of the fact they get exposed in midfield, people running off the back of Mainu, Casemiro not being able to cover the ground as maybe he had before. What they really need is a player like Angel Gomez.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. I mean, again, an emblem of mismanagement at the highest level that really has crippled Manchester United for the best part of 2 decades. But I agree with Terry, this is a must-win game. I saw Southampton against Brentford. Russell Martin was quite upbeat afterwards. He felt they played some good football, but defensively they made unforgivable errors, really, and they looked like a team who were going to concede a lot of goals. So not only do United need to win this, I think they need to win it well. You know, scraping a 1-0 victory away from home to St Mary's probably isn't going to do the job.
3 defeats, 3 games, and only 1 goal scored for Southampton at this moment in time. And there was a letter written to the local paper this week. You may have seen it because I know you reside down there, in which a fan spoke to the sort of general narrative, which is that Russell Martin needs to remember that he's in the Premier League now and he can't keep playing this sort of expansive type of football and taking these gambles and these risks. He's in the top league, whilst the majority of the squad are only of championship quality. The team needs a plan B and a plan C. One strategy is not good enough in all situations. The players must be able to make decisions based on the situations they're in. Now, the truth is, it's an easy narrative to succumb to with Russell Martin and his team. He isn't going to change it. We've talked about this on the podcast before. He has his way of playing and he believes in it. The truth, if you watch the games so far, and I watched 2 of their 3 opening matches, is that actually largely their performances have been very good, quite strong, apart from the fact that there are these moments where they make individual errors that cost them points. Now, last season, they had a similar sort of run at the beginning of the campaign, you'll remember, and everyone was on his back, and then they went on a 25-game unbeaten run. Could it be that actually, once they bed themselves into the season, they could have a similar upturn in fortunes? Maybe not 25 games unbeaten.
I was going to say no.
But they could go on a run where they actually start to post more consistent results.
And survive relegation. They're going to learn from their mistakes. But whether they can or not, because doing it in the Championship is one thing, doing it in the Premier League is another. You're up against better players, better coaches. Now everybody knows how Southampton plays at every team they face. No one's going to sit back and drop off and let Southampton have the ball. Everyone's going to go as soon as they want to play that short goal kick and it goes back to the goalkeeper, now Ramsdale. Everyone's going to be looking to close down high up the pitch, play numbers of players in positions you might not normally do, because Southampton have got players that still don't look comfortable playing like that. And the goals they're conceding are fundamental errors that shouldn't happen in top-flight football. But because the manager wants them to play that way, the players are doing stuff that, don't pass across your own penalty box, stuff like that. Don't give it back to the goalkeeper unless you have to, because he isn't very good with the ball at his feet. He hasn't got the confidence. All those basic fundamentals you still have to apply. And if you're Southampton, you can't go into every game, every week, playing it how you want, because you are going to get destroyed.
You're an old man, but you remember that instruction from when you were a kid.
I do, yeah. Absolutely. I think Terry's got a really good point there, because you look at the back 3 in particular, Jack Stevens, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, Jan Bednarek, none of them look particularly comfortable in receiving the ball on the edge of their own penalty area, and that's where a lot of the goals have come from. I spoke to Aaron Ramsdale after the game at Brentford Action. He was quite infused by the football they play. He thinks they're going to be okay this season. Obviously, he's going to have to be comfortable playing out for the back as well. And I know that Adam Lallana spoke to the players after that defeat at Brentford and said, look, we got a lot of stick at Brighton for playing this way under Graham Potter. It worked out okay in the end, so you've got to stick to the plan. And he's got on record, Russell Martin, the best form of plan B is making plan A better. He is not going to change. That might well be to their detriment, but he's going to stick to his principles.
So Manchester United, all the ingredients are there for them to go down to Southampton, get 3 points, come home and settle things down as far as the scrutiny on Erik ten Hag is concerned. But they come into this game 14th in the league, thrashed by Liverpool last time out, confidence not particularly great, and the early kick-off puts them in a bit of an issue, because there'll be a lot of players that went away with their international teams and that come back later.
All over the world, out to the South America and stuff like that. So that is an issue. It's the worst game to play after an international break is the the early kick-off on the Saturday. This is such a dramatic game because the consequences are, if United don't win, the pressure that's going to pile on the club and Ten Hag.
This is not a game they can afford to draw. They've got to win.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't think a draw would a draw get in the sack. Don't know.
They probably won't sack him until
a defeat. I don't know.
No, they probably won't sack him until the international break next time around, will they?
It's only a month of this, 2 or 3 weeks.
It's a big month, though. You look at the fixtures they've got. Obviously, it's a difficult start to the season. Brighton away, Liverpool at home, not easy games, but they've got a run of fixtures now.
Fulham,
where they should be picked. No,
for
Man
United,
I deliberately didn't mention Fulham.
Southampton,
Fulham and Brighton.
But they've now got a run of fixtures where they would be expected to pick up points. It's a big week, isn't it? They go to Southampton, then they've got Barnsley at home in the League Cup. Can you imagine if they get dumped out the League Cup by Barnsley? The pressure is going to crank up. Ugarte played 90 minutes for Uruguay during the break. Hopefully that means he's ready to go back into the team, but he's going to have to be like Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta rolled into one to solve the midfield issues that we saw against Liverpool. But that is a positive. I think Højlund is not too far away from fitness now either, so he's going to get some players back, Ten Hag. This is a big period between now and the next international break. Is season-defining, maybe job-defining.
Yeah, we were a little bit flippant there in sort of talking about his future. I said, they won't sack him until the next international break. I've always been of the belief that he's only there as a stopgap until they find the manager that they really want. And the reason for that is the way they conducted themselves at the end of last season and during the summer. So, it's not without foundation. But listen, he may well turn it round and end up, like Fergie did and going on and having a great Manchester United career. And if that works, then good luck to him. But Danny Murphy said on talkSPORT this week that he thought one of the big issues that they've got is that he doesn't think their attack is good enough. And it's something that I raised in the game against Fulham at the beginning of the season. And Andy Townsend said to me, no, there's goals in the team, it will be fine. But there doesn't appear to be that many goals in the team. 57 last season was the lowest in the top half of the table. They were the lowest scorers in the top 4 when they got into Europe the year before. I don't know if it's a tactical thing or it's a talent thing.
And the fact they haven't bought the big-name striker that everybody thought they were going to buy for the last 2 or 3 years. I think I can put it as easy as this. If you're Manchester United and you're buying players, you've got to buy players that might get a game of Man City, that might get in the Liverpool team. But they're not. So the attacking players they're buying, Zirkzee was never going to go to City or Liverpool, or Højlund probably wasn't either. They were in the race for him. You look at the young ones, Garnacho, Amad Diallo, do they get in Man City, Liverpool's, Arsenal's striking? No, despite the fact that, admittedly, they are 2 good young players, but are they at the level where Man United will be challenging for the Premier League and challenging for the Champions League? No, I mean, I agree with Danny on it, actually. Marcus Rashford hasn't shown the form that he has shown in the past. So when you look at the starting lineup for United, whoever's playing out of that group, you're still looking at probably Bruno Fernandes being the main attacking player, and he's a midfield player. And
defensively, it's still not completely shored up, is it?
No, and it was alarming to see De Ligt make such a glaring error for the Dutch and being hauled off at half-time. So his confidence is going to be a little bit shot. And actually, after a positive start last game against Liverpool, I thought he quickly faded away as Liverpool cranked up the pressure and scored their goals. So, listen, there's question marks at both ends of the pitch. I was encouraged by the videos doing the rounds of Marcus Rashford doing some private one-to-one training and tuition and finishing practice this week because he's so key for United. He's their highest earner. He's a player who's proven in the past he's capable of scoring a lot of goals over the course of a season. So he could be the answer to their goal-scoring problems, but not based on what we've seen so far.
Ugarte, as Crook has already said, is in line for his debut this week. A lot of pressure for him to plug that black hole in the Manchester United midfield. We'll see what happens live on talkSPORT. It's a 12:30 start on Saturday. We'll be down there with Stuart Pearce and Reshmin Chowdhury. Also on Saturday, talkSPORT bringing you live commentary of a bonus game in the evening. Bournemouth against Chelsea, 8 o'clock at the Vitality Stadium. Transfer window may be closed, but chaos lives on at Chelsea. In fact, it reigns supreme. We do love the fact that both Manchester United and Chelsea give us so much to talk about every single week, don't we?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's almost like they try and outdo each other for the Clown Club of the Week award. But we've seen this coming, haven't we? There's this fallout between Eghbali and Todd Boehly. You and I have spoken about it privately. We've alluded to it on air. That they're 2 guys who have very different views about how the football club should be run. Eghbali wants to be hands-on. He wants to lead the transfer strategy. He wants to say on team selection. I understand. He wants to be a visible
How much
presence.
does he know? How many coaching badges does he?
Well, this is a point, and I think his continual interference, if you like, played a big part in the fact that Pochettino left, because he wasn't fired, Pochettino. It was a mutual decision. I think he was as happy to be shot of Chelsea as Eghbali was to be shot of him. Exactly. And Todd Boehly is watching this from afar because he's not as hands-on. He has differing views. He believes that, I think that people who know football should be in charge of such decisions, and it's interesting to see which way it goes.
Apparently they want to buy each other out.
But neither wants to sell to the other.
I mean, they might as well just put them in.
It just seems so many people involved in the we can't ignore Paul Winstanley.
But this is the problem.
And Lawrence Stewart.
Modern football, isn't it? Right?
Those guys want to be involved
because the clubs are so expensive. Because there's so much money swilling around. One person can't own a club like Chelsea, like Manchester United, like Liverpool. It's a consortium. So unless you've got a harmonious group a very good organisational setup, then you're just going to have fractures all over the place. And you've got so many different groups with different interests, different people pushing different agendas, that actually ends up being a complete mess.
Yeah, and the two guys I just mentioned, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, who do they report to? Who's in their chain of command?
Well, they're never too far away from Eghbali.
Yeah, they're cuddled
up
to Eghbali.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at Lawrence Stewart. He's 38. It's his 10th job in 10 years. Which I find astonishing for a director of football that's got such a big reputation. I'm thinking, well, you've only done a year at every club you've been at.
So you can never really measure any success in that.
You can't do. You can claim.
Doesn't matter
you
how
can
much
claim
you
he
buy.
bought this player and
Exactly.
that player and that player and this player come through, but 10 jobs in 10 years.
Well, we haven't even mentioned Joe Shields. Joe Shields, as I understand it, was the driving force behind Jadon Sancho's arrival on deadline day because he worked with him at Manchester City. So there are so many different cooks. And actually, I never thought I'd say this, but you're talking about multiple ownership. Manchester United are doing it right, aren't they? Because the Glazers are leaving Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford to make the football decisions because they know that they have the expertise.
Well, organisationally, Manchester United looks a better structure now. I mean, Chelsea's structure seems to be all over the place. You mentioned Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart. There was at one stage Christopher Weivel, who was sporting director. Those two football directors. He was sporting director.
So because Chelsea got all these other sports that they do. Chelsea Football Club.
That was three people doing one job.
Joe Shields, I mentioned.
Joe Shields. And Sam Jules there as a recruitment specialist as well. So there's so many people trying to do very similar sorts of job or trying to take credit for bringing in the next big thing. And listen, there's quite a few next big things coming through the door at Chelsea because the sheer number of players. They're also talking about the idea of moving stadium. And there was a report which is absolute nonsense about them going to Earls Court. No chance. They've already done that. I mean, I haven't read the latest article, but I'll tell you what happened the last time they were going to go to Earls Court, is that they did a risk assessment. There's a double train line that goes right underneath that particular part of London. And they were like, well, we're not going to put a line with active trains going under a stadium whilst games are going on. That's quite a bit of a safety risk. So we're probably not going to be allowed to build there. And then there's the other thing, that actually they can't just move Chelsea. It's impossible for them to do that unless the Chelsea fans say so. Because
the pitch owners.
Chelsea pitch owners own the name Chelsea, they own the Stamford Bridge turf, and they decide where Chelsea play their football. So they've got to get people on side. And the one thing that they haven't done since becoming the owners of Chelsea is get anyone on side.
It's absolutely ludicrous. And even just to go back to the recruitment decision and this fallout between Eghbali and Boehly, and I'm told there's almost no chance they can find middle ground and continue to work together. Raheem Sterling, you look at that deal. I wrote about it on the talkSPORT notebook. You alluded to it the day after the transfer deadline. They're paying £12 million of his wages, Chelsea, in order for him to go and play for another London club.
That's just for this year?
Yeah. So, I mean, why has he left the football club? Is it a coincidence that Eghbali was so keen to get a shot at Raheem Sterling when he was Todd Boehly's first signing as sporting director? Carney Chukwuemeka was signed before the two sporting directors came in. They were trying to get rid of him on deadline day. Again, is that a coincidence?
It's a power play. And Arsenal are the beneficiaries.
Hugely.
I mean, Arsenal paying 30% of his wages
and no loan fee. It's ridiculous.
Astonishing.
It is.
It is. I mean, the amount of money that is in football, but there's still a need, surely, to cut your cloth accordingly, especially with.
I suppose their argument will be, hold on, he's not
implications.
playing, he's not in the team, you're not going to see him. If he stays at Chelsea, you're just going to pay him the full whack of the wages, and we're going to
And he was in that squad that wasn't going to be in the squad.
He was in the bomb squad. So if we give him to Arsenal, he gets a chance to showcase his talent. However little we're paying him, it's less than we would do if he was sitting in the bomb squad, and we're getting to see him. There might engender a bit of interest at the end of the season, and someone might give you a fiver for him at the end of the campaign.
But if he tears it up at Arsenal, they look even more ridiculous.
They can't look any more ridiculous, let's be completely honest. Right, let's talk a little bit about Bournemouth, because they're the actual opponents that Chelsea on the pitch have got to try and negotiate. Chelsea's start has been mixed. I mean, they beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 6-2, but they gave up chances even in that game. In the first half, it was, could have gone either way, actually. I think they had a goal disallowed and hit the posts, Wolverhampton Wanderers, during that match. Bournemouth have only lost one of their last 8, and they're not going to be as bad as they were for 87 minutes at Everton.
Astonishing game, wasn't it? You're thinking, looking at that, thinking, Everton they've finally got their win. To not even draw that game, Everton, is it's catastrophic. So Bournemouth, good spirit. I like where Bournemouth are going, I have to be honest. I think year in, year out now, they're buying good players. They're spending the money well that they got from Dominic Solanke. I think we all respect the manager, what he's done so far, and the potential that he has at Bournemouth and maybe other clubs in the Premier League.
Just talk a little bit about what you saw of him in Spain and how he's translated that to the Premier League.
Well, I kept hearing I've watched him for the whole time he was manager of Rayo Vallecano. He had a style of play, but when he came to the Premier League, everyone was saying Iraola ball and this and that. And his style of play isn't off the scale. It's not something unique. I talked about the fundamentals earlier at Southampton. He applies those fundamentals. He has his style of football in terms of, yes, close down, all the right things, basic fundamentals. So go and close people down at the right time, drop off at the right time, play at the back at the right time. If it has to go along, you do that. If it's the right thing to do, all those fundamentals. But he does like his team to be attack-minded. That was the case with Rayo Vallecano. Rayo Vallecano, a tiny club compared to Bournemouth. And they're always punching above their weight. They like beating the Barcelonas and Real Madrids, which they did.
Yeah, they gave them bloody noses under him.
Yeah. So I kind of knew what to expect. So I was a little bit bemused when he came to the Premier League and everyone was saying, we're going to see this. He's not your classic La Liga coach in terms of playing out the back and playing lots of little passes.
He's more interested in closing down higher up the pitch and winning the ball up.
And not possession for possession's sake. It's get the ball forward quickly.
Yeah. Because if you look at the stats, they're the best team at turning over the ball in the higher third of the pitch. Yeah. So that last season was in evidence, as we thought it might be when he first came over. And Chelsea playing out from the back and trying to play Enzo Maresca ball might well fall victim to that.
Yeah, and they've got some really exciting forward players. I mean, I've got a little bit of a
man crush.
Of a man crush on Antoine Semenyo. I think he's had a brilliant start to the season. Tavernier on the other wing, I think, is a really good player. Someone else who's come up from the EFL. Justin Kluivert is playing probably the best football of his career at this moment in time. And I like what I've seen from Evan Nilsson so far. So I don't think Chelsea will keep a clean sheet, put it that way. I think this could be a really entertaining and maybe a high-scoring game. Yeah, he's a good impact player off the bench as well. They've got a good squad, Bournemouth. Alex Scott, I interviewed during the international break. Very confident young man, but at the moment he's not able to hold down a regular place in the starting lineup.
Ryan Christie's a good footballer.
Well, Ryan Christie is one player who's really benefited from Iraola. Actually, both of those lads in midfield, Lewis Cook as well, who captained the team, scored the goal at Everton. They've both come on leaps and bounds under his tutelage. Got some good players defensively. Big fan of Zabani. I think Kirkes is exciting. I think they're going to have a good season, Bournemouth.
Which would be well away from relegation again.
Yeah, I think they can challenge for the top half.
That's why I think. Yeah. I'm not going to suggest European football. Iraola believes that. And I think the players
owner
will start
would demand
to
it.
That as well.
He is an ambitious guy, Bill Foley.
Yeah, so I think...
Well, that's good news for Chelsea. Chelsea, Manchester United struggling on the South Coast. Who would have thought it? It's a weekend that we're going down there. Brilliant. I can't wait for the weekend. Villa against Everton at 5:30 on Saturday evening. Villa enter their first Champions League week. It's a busy week for them. They've got a clash against Everton on Saturday night. And then they go into the top tier of European football for the first time since the early 80s. Now, there's been a little bit of negativity around the club because of the pricing structure over tickets. And they've suggested that the reason for the £90 plus tickets at the Champions League this season was due to PSR issues. but it hasn't gone down particularly well. In fact, at one stage they withdrew free parking for disabled supporters and then had to reinstate that very quickly.
Yeah, there's a couple of own goals there as far as Villa are concerned. I guess you have to provide balance and say that this is not a club, as you've mentioned there, who regularly play in the European Cup or the Champions League as it is now, so maybe there's a feeling they have to take advantage of their moment in the sunshine. But with what's going on economically in the world at this moment in time, I think they've badly misread the room, and I think the fans are right to protest.
Ollie Watkins, another England player who didn't go on international duty. He looked at the early part of the season a little bit rusty, didn't he? He missed a couple of chances in the game against Arsenal, which everyone highlighted.
Big chances.
In fact, he hasn't scored a goal. I don't think he's scored a goal yet, has he, Ollie Watkins, so far this season? He'll be desperate to get off to a start at some point, and I suppose Everton doesn't provide you with a better opportunity.
No, because Everton are conceding goals left, right and centre, which is unusual for a team coached by Sean Dyche. But Watkins is playing well, but it doesn't matter. What matters is him sticking the ball in the back of the net. And a player who would have been on top of the world after doing well for England in the summer. It just goes to show how quickly a striker, and believe me, I know you can lose confidence. It can be one chance that you miss, that you think about for the next 10 minutes, and then another chance comes along, because you've thought about the other chance for 10 minutes ago, you miss that one, then the whole world feels like it's coming on top of you.
It's really fascinating.
So he needs that goal.
It's really fascinating, isn't it? Because, like you said, he's playing well. And actually, there was last season, I think it was the beginning of last season, if you looked at the way that Dominic Calvert-Lewin was playing and the chances he was getting and his XG possibility, it was exactly the same as it was in the season where he got 17 goals for Everton.
Yeah.
But in that final moment, that final action, that execution of the chance, it just seemed to go awry. And I was always wondering, well, what is it? What makes that happen? Because actually, getting in the position, getting the chances, that's the hard bit to do, getting there on a regular basis, and then pulling the trigger. It must be the mental process right at that final second, mustn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, what you prefer as a striker, and I can say this from experience, you need that instinctive finish. You don't need a chance where you've got 5 seconds to think about what you're doing. If you haven't got confidence, if you've got no confidence and the ball comes in the box, something happens quickly and instinctively you know where the goal is. Those chances are fine to deal with when you've got no confidence. The ones that bring you down are when you're through on goal and you've got a decision to make, and all those dark thoughts of missing their last chance.
So when you're running through one-on-one with a goalkeeper, what comes into your head?
If you're confident, it's the easiest thing in the world. If you've got no confidence, you're thinking 10 different things.
Like, should I go over the top of him? Should I put it in the corner? Should I go low?
Should I go through his legs? Should I go to the left, to the right? Whereas if you're in a confident mood, you throw and you just instinctively pick the right finish. It's something that I have experience of doing. I tell you, when you're confident, the goal seems like the biggest thing in the world. So when you're going through with one-on-one on the goalkeeper, the goal looks massive. You can curl it round and do what you want. When you're not got confidence, you can barely see the goal beyond the goalkeeper. All you can see is the goalkeeper bearing down.
Amazing how the mind plays tricks on you.
But what makes me laugh is the big hitters never seem to. Ronaldo's never ever gone through a period of not being confident.
Even when he misses chances, he don't care. He missed a chance for Haaland.
Haaland misses a lot of chances.
Exactly.
And sometimes like really embarrassing misses, which for the rest of us would haunt us. I remember playing five-a-side with Crook and missing from 1 yard out. And I honestly, it still plays on my mind to this day.
I've still got it. I can remember more of my missed chances than goals I scored. I still wake up in the middle of the night, how did I miss that?
One player who has hit the ground running and is definitely full of confidence is Morgan Rogers. He scored twice for the England under-21s during the week as well. He's looked set for a key role this season. And the unearthing of Lamine Bogard has also helped add to squad depth, which is going to be important this season. Yeah,
I think they've actually used the window well, Villa, because obviously they lost Douglas Luiz, but were able to reinvest that money. I think Onana has been a really, really good addition, different type of player to Luiz. But you're right about Morgan Rogers. I think he was maybe a little bit unlucky, bearing in mind that Lee Carsley put his faith in a lot of under-21 players, that he didn't get the senior call-up. But I'm sure if he keeps playing as well as he is, it will only be a matter of time. What's strange about him is, I remember he was on loan at Bournemouth from Manchester City, and Scott Parker refused to play him. What a player he is, though.
I'm looking at those loans he's had, the clubs he's had for a 22-year-old. He's gone the long way round. West Brom, Man City, Lincoln on loan, Bournemouth on loan, Blackpool on loan, Middlesbrough in the Championship again, and then the transfer to Villa. So 22 years old, he's it's not been an easy. Yeah, well, it's not been an easy road for him. He could have got despondent, lost hope when he went, as you said, on loan, didn't get a game, and playing in the lower leagues with Lincoln. You can lose your. I mean, how many of those players do we see ever make it? Normally, they go on loan. They find their level. They never get another chance.
I mean, he's a little bit higher grade in terms of the loans, in that most of it was in the Championship, although he did have a spell in League One as well. Yeah. But Harry Kane had a similar sort of thing. Yeah. If you look at Harry Kane, he went through the divisions, playing Leyton Orient, playing at Norwich, playing at Millwall. Leicester. Yeah. He had lots of loan spells before eventually making the breakthrough.
Normally that player that does that doesn't finally make a breakthrough.
Andros Townsend was the same.
In the Premier League. So, again, you know, it's marvellous to see a player actually at 22, still a young player, come through that. It's not easy. It's an ordeal to be, because if you're shunted out on loan, the club that owns you kind of saying, yeah, you're not for us, and see what happens. And
of course, he's another number 10, and England have got a dearth of number 10s. Can't find them anywhere. What they really need is an out-and-out striker and a left-back. Anyone can play that position. As for Everton, the old cliche of international break coming at just the right time couldn't ring more true, because they've had a really difficult start to the campaign. And none more than that capitulation against Bournemouth, which was terrible, really, for them, because after 87 minutes they'd actually played a relatively good game. How psychologically will that affect them going into this match?
I think massively, because confidence to me looked on the floor after they got hammered at Spurs. So this is another hammer blow for them. I think the fans are nervous. I think the players are nervous, and they've forgotten how to win games, particularly early in the season. It just sets you up for another year of struggle. And Terry's already mentioned it. I made a stupid prediction at the start of the season that they concede fewer than 45 goals, Everton, because I expected them to be defensively resolute, if nothing else. They've conceded 10 in three games. Probably should have been 11 if you remember the narrow offside goal they conceded against Brighton on the opening day. So, yeah, I fear for them, and I think they're going to get well beaten again this weekend.
Yeah, they almost conceded against Doncaster in the League Cup as well, so it could have been even worse for them. Villa have won 5 of the last 7 against Everton, and I'm sure at some point over the weekend someone will mention that this is the oldest fixture between two clubs that have played each other since every year since 1834 or something like that, because it is a long-standing rivalry. Let's get into Sunday's action now, where it's the first of 3 mammoth games for Arsenal, and they start with their old rivals, Spurs. Off to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for Arsenal this week, and Mikel Arteta, and what a big week it is as well for the Gunners, because not only do they have to go to Tottenham, they also have a game away at Atalanta, followed by an away trip to Manchester City. Weeks don't come bigger than this.
No, and I think Arteta will be furious that players are missing through injury and suspension.
You're talking about Declan Rice, who's suspended, Martin Ødegaard, who limped off during a Norwegian game in midweek, Marino, who's injured, and Calafiori, who had a problem on international duty, as a doubt as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue. You look around at the other players they've got, they have got players to fill in, but in a week like this, you want your strongest players, best players available. And they're unfortunately not. When I say unfortunately, I'm really trying not to.
You don't mean it.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's a blow. But they do have quality. There might have to be some shuffling around about Kai Havertz dropping back in to midfield as opposed to playing up front. Gabriel Jesus coming back in and stuff like that. Raheem Sterling. They're okay in terms of the names, but the form they're in at the moment, despite the draw against Brighton in the last home game, things were going quite smoothly for them. So Arteta wouldn't want to change the system and change too many players. And he hasn't got the strength and depth to rotate in the 3 games anyway. So I think the same 11, if had been fit, would have played in all 3 games. So it's a tough week for us. But that's what they want. They want a tough week.
I think we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago about the tightness of the squad, and about how he likes to work with a small squad and leave the window open for some of the younger players to break through. But I mean, that's something that I think he wants to do over time. But these things do happen. You do get into a situation sometimes in the Premier League where you do lose 3 players all at once, and they're key players, and this is what's happened here. So how will it impact the way they line up? Havertz can drop into midfield. Maybe Jesus, if he's fit, can end up playing as the point man. Jorginho probably will come into the engine room, but that might mean more room for James Maddison to create, and he's started quite well.
Yeah, I think Jorginho for Rice is the obvious change, but I think this highlights, again, the failings of Arsenal in the transfer market not to bring in a number 9, because I think you would want to drop Havertz back into that Ødegaard position, but that's going to change the whole dynamic of the team if you suddenly put Jesus up front and move Havertz from a position that he's been playing very well in this season. So I think it is a problem for Arsenal. I think it's a huge opportunity for Spurs to send out an early season statement, because I've not been overly impressed with Ange Postecoglou's side so far, apart from that Everton game, which wasn't really a barometer because Everton was so poor. They obviously failed to see it out against Leicester when they were dominant. They lost a game against Newcastle when also they were dominant for large periods. And again, that high defensive line has been an issue. So, yeah, I think this is a really fascinating fixture. It always is anyway. But the Arsenal absentees make it even more so, because I think the onus is really on Spurs to go and try and win this game.
Will it mean that we might see Raheem Sterling make his debut?
I think so. I think as midway in international duties, have been training with Arteta and the rest of the players left behind. I think the problem for when you say about the strength in depth is when you get, everyone's going to get injuries, but when you get 3 in the one position or 2 injuries and a suspension in the one position, you can't really counter for that. You can't say at the beginning of the season
They've still got
in the transfer window
and Jorginho, haven't they?
Yeah.
I mean, 2 players that
you can't say we need another, just in
top
case we had 3 out in one game.
They're not on Declan Rice's level, though, are
they're
they?
not, but they're also not 16 years of age and never played a Champions League game before.
Exactly. So, but I think that's the issue with if you get 3 centre forwards injured, you can't then turn around and say, in transfer window, I knew we should have bought.
Yeah, but if Arsenal get 1 centre forward injured, they got a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah.
Because they haven't really got a centre forward.
Arsenal certainly can't win the title with a win over Spurs and against Manchester City, but could they put themselves in a position where they can't win it if they end up losing those games? They can not lose the title, but they can put themselves in a difficult position if they don't manage to pick up maximum points, especially against Tottenham.
Well, I don't think you could afford to give City a head start. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the possible points deduction and their FFP charges, but Arsenal aren't going to be banking on winning the league off the back of that.
Stop talking about FFP and PSR. It's so boring.
But even Liverpool...
And people find a way past it, don't they, if you're Leicester?
Even Liverpool have hit the ground running under Arne Slot, and I think they're going to be right up there. So those 2 points dropped against Brighton, you mentioned it in commentary. That's why Arsenal was so anxious to try and win that game, because they know that every drop point is putting them at a real disadvantage, not just when it comes to City, but Liverpool as well.
Spurs 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat, but they had 20 shots against Newcastle and didn't score themselves. They need Dan Burn to do it for them. Should they have had more points on the board this season than they've got? Or actually, have we seen that without Mickey van der Ven in the lineup, they just can't win?
Without Mickey van der Ven in the lineup, they can't defend on the halfway line like they did against.
But he keeps doing it, Postecoglou.
Yeah. But he's not going to change. So if you look at the statistics, when Van der Ven, Udogie, Porro and Romero don't play together, their win percentage, even if one of them is not available, their win percentage plummets.
Van der Ven is the important one because the fullbacks are playing up or in, so he's the one with the pace that might have been able to react to the winning goal that Newcastle scored. 2 points dropped at Leicester. They should have won that. It should have been done by half time.
Should have been Newcastle.
And then they, even a draw. I mean, bearing in mind how bad it's been in the last couple of years, a draw wouldn't have been the worst. So they should be sitting on 7 points, but they're not. They're on 4. So this is critical for Spurs as well. For Postecoglou to win a North London derby, but not to drop off again from the teams that you're hoping that they're going to be challenging for top 4.
And you've talked about confidence of centre forwards, and I know you've mentioned sliding doors moments at the start of careers. Xerxes scoring in front of the Stretford end, Solanke snatching at a few chances against Leicester. Then he gets injured, having been fit all of last season for Bournemouth. I just wonder psychologically, is that already piling the pressure after such a big money move for him?
He's missed more minutes in the Premier League for Tottenham already this campaign than he missed for Bournemouth.
And he's critical
last season.
Because without him, they're playing without centre forward. Song can play there, obviously. He's shown his quality, but he likes the drift. He doesn't want to be pinned up against the centre halves. He doesn't want to be playing with his back to goal. So in the games he's missed, you're looking and thinking Spurs don't have there's no one actually playing centre forward.
There were good games last year between the two.
Yeah.
Who wins this one?
Well, Arsenal tore them apart, though, didn't they, for the first half in this game last season, and then Spurs were let back in it. I'm going to go draw. I think with those absentees, I think Spurs will get a point.
Head, Terry, not heart.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I was going to sit on the fence with a draw. I'm going to go for a Spurs win.
Are you? I'll go for an Arsenal win, just to mix it up.
There you go.
Yeah, I think the 2 games Spurs have had away from home, that they've dropped points, I think, because they're away from home. So I think the Tottenham Stadium, they might come good.
There'll be goals. Again, I think this is going to be another exciting weekend.
There might have been a suggestion that maybe Ben White can move into midfield, but apparently he's not taking anyone's calls at this moment in time. He's told the England staff to stop trying to contact him via call-up, according to Lee Carsley. It's pretty simple. You use WhatsApp, don't you?
Yeah.
You got an iPhone, haven't you?
Yeah.
You just block people. If you don't want to talk to them, just block them.
Why are they still ringing him if he...
Well, should we look at that quote? Because was he saying that they've tried, since Lee Carsley became manager, to get him back in England setup? Or was he saying he told them at the time he didn't want to be called up and they haven't revisited it? I think if you look at the quote, it's not necessarily clear.
It's a better story if it's like Ben White pressing busy every time the Carsley number comes up on his phone. I can see it happening. Why wouldn't he want to play for England?
I don't get that. Allegedly fell out with someone, but they're not there
can't
anymore.
Be the story, right?
So,
because no one's there anymore. There's not one member of the coaching staff that still remains.
And then if I was the future manager, I'd say no, he don't want to play for England. And it's a position where England have got other players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to play right back, is he?
Why go back to someone?
I suppose maybe
why
his
would I
thought
force
is
someone to play for England? Twist their arm, get them to come back.
And he'll have heard the
England.
reports, Carsley, of what Ben White was like around the training camp, and maybe he's decided, actually, I don't want that in my group.
He's not a particularly lover of football, is he, from what I understand?
No, he says he doesn't watch football, which is not unusual, by the way. There's more.
Well, it is unusual. It's not sort of unique, but it's
not unique. Yeah,
it is unusual. Yeah. I mean, most footballers watch football.
Yeah, I've come across one or two that don't even know who they're playing against.
Exactly.
They've had a team talk for an hour and a half the day before
if you read
about the
Pat
plan
Levin's
of
book,
action.
He once sat in the dressing room and said, "Who is it we're playing today?"
Yeah.
Just an hour and a half before. And didn't have a clue what was going on. But anyway, then probably turned up and scored a hat-trick. So that's Tottenham against Arsenal. That's Sunday afternoon. We'll cover it on the Sunday session, which comes from Fratton Park this weekend. I'll be there from 1:30 through till 6:30. Crook's going to be at the North London derby, aren't you? We're also going to concentrate on other matches that are taking place that day as well. Wolverhampton Wanderers against Newcastle United. Reporting the Telegraph yesterday that Eddie Howe and Paul Mitchell have had a romantic dinner and settled their differences. Did Darren Eales go to that dinner as well? Let's see. I still think there are issues behind the scenes. I think that interview that we spoke about at the weekend that Paul Mitchell gave didn't go down well, not just with Eddie Howe, but Dan Ashworth was quite upset, I think, to hear his transfer policy described as not fit for purpose. So let's see where this develops. They've had a transfer window that's left them short, and actually there's pressure on Paul Mitchell now. I wrote about this yesterday. There's two players in Alexander Isak and Anthony Gordon. The Newcastle are really keen to tie down to new contracts, and I think Paul Mitchell, having failed to deliver in the transfer window, in my opinion, needs to get these deals signed. If I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be absolutely furious. I'd be furious because I'm looking at the landscape. I know that there's money in the football club and I cannot spend it, even sensibly. Now, a lot of that is to do with PSR and the way that the league is structured. And it does feel like, for whatever reason, bearing in mind they didn't spend a penny under Mike Ashley, that this club is being restricted in terms of trying to push itself forward when it has got money. You can argue the rights are wrong and whatever, and whether there should be balance in the force and all that kind of stuff, and we don't want clubs overspending and this and that. But ultimately, if there is an owner that wants to capitally put in money, not loan it, but put in money, why isn't that allowed? Because they have sold Yankuba Minte, who is terrific, by the way, and he's going to be a hell of a footballer, who plays on the right-hand side, starts every game for Brighton. They sold him for 30 million quid. They need someone to play on the right-hand side with that sort of pace and goal. And he's playing at a different club because of PSR. That's why Eddie was so upset when he left. I think there were a lot of players that he would rather have moved on. I mean, you're right. The principle of PSR is admirable, because we were working down the south coast when Portsmouth almost went bust because the owner had his assets frozen. But the Saudis aren't going to run out of money, so I think they should be allowed to spend it, and I think PSR needs re-evaluating, because otherwise you're just making the Premier League a closed shop. It's a miracle when teams like Villa and Newcastle manage to break into the top four, and then they can't go any challenge for the title. And what we're not going to see is a Jack Walker-Blackburn situation ever again. I think the issue with the transfer window is they went all in on Mark Gay, didn't they? They should have just paid the money, though. Palace had their price. Just put the money down early doors. Or have another option. You can't. Well, they were looking at Joe Gomez at one stage. Yeah, that nearly happened early in the window. And then in the end, they got neither. And the worry for Newcastle and their fans would be that the England job is up for grabs, and Eddie Howe is
I believe, the most obvious candidate. So if it's not all harmonious behind the scenes, clearly isn't.
Lee Carsley has put himself in a good position for the England job, though, hasn't he?
No, not particularly, no. Why? We beat Finland and Ireland. We're in the second tier of the Nations League. There's 6 games, England shouldn't lose any of them. So you could put Harry Kane in charge at the moment and they'd still win those 2
Quite
games.
dismissive, isn't it?
I see where he's coming from.
No, I'm feeling quite bullish about that I'm irritated as why England haven't dealt with it now rather than... Because this is...
Well, I think
these
they're
games
watching
are
the
great
Eddie Howe
opportunity.
situation in the FA.
Yeah, these games are a great opportunity for the manager to start coming up with his plans.
Which is why he's a serious candidate, because they're giving him the opportunity to put his stamp on it.
But Terry's right. I mean, what have we learnt about these 2 games? Yes, first half against Ireland, front foot football, pressed a lot higher. I think Harry Kane, over the course of the 2 games, has played more as a number 9 and not dropped into midfield. Trent Alexander-Arnold in his proper position. Anthony Gordon has got minutes and proved he can influence the game. But we knew all that anyway. And actually, the fact that Gareth Southgate didn't use Anthony Gordon and Lee Carsley doesn't make Lee Carsley a genius. Makes Southgate look stupid.
Oh, well, here we go. I was waiting for it. Let's have a go at Gareth Southgate.
That's the popularity of Lee Carsley is because it's not Gareth Southgate.
Alex Crook 101. On the positives for Newcastle United, Sandro Tonali registered 2 full games for Italy in the international break. He already looked as if he had been working incredibly hard, and I understand he has been during his ban, to not only integrate with the football team. He stayed on Tyneside for most of it. He's got himself incredibly fit. He wants to be a part of the group. He's going to be a massive asset, isn't he?
Bless him. Working hard. How long was that ban? It's not patting him on the back too much. And it's good for he's a good player and it's good for Newcastle to have him back. That's the least we'd expect, wouldn't it? Surely a player chomping at the bit.
Crikey.
Newcastle.
I didn't realise I was working with the 2 old curmudgeons.
Yeah. I don't want to roll out the red carpet for a player who's banned for something he did, clearly, and then we're...
Right, OK. Quickly on to Wolves. Only a single point from their opening 3 games. The squad looks thin, looks actually significantly worse than it did last year. I know that Gary O'Neill started the campaign. He wanted to try and play a little bit more of a sort of front foot progressive football. But I think he's come to the sort of conclusion that actually, do you know what? I didn't get what I wanted in the transfer window. The club have shut down probably deals that they would love to have done. If you look at the way that they've recruited and compare it to other teams in the Premier League, here's another example. I don't know if it's PSR. Actually, by the way, I hear their PSR situation is not that bad, and that actually it feels like the owners have just pulled the money back a little bit. They got rid of top players over the course of the last couple of years, Neto being one of them. Kilman's gone for 40 million quid, and they haven't replaced them like for like in any way, shape or form, or got anywhere near replacing them.
No, I think it's pretty clear.
Nunez as well.
I think it's pretty clear the owners don't want to put any money in. I think it's pretty clear that they're open to offers in terms of selling their shares, not that they'll limit that publicly. And I think for Gary O'Neill, we started this show by talking about Russell Martin and lack of a plan B. I think Gary O'Neill's best chance of keeping Wolves up this season, I think they are going to be relegation candidates, is going back to plan A, making them difficult to beat, making them a counter-attacking side. Obviously, they don't have that threat with Neto, which is a big problem in that department. But if they try and out-football teams, I just don't think they have the tools at their disposal. They're not going to be able to out-football Newcastle in this game, for example. And I do feel sorry for Gary because I do think they've had a pretty disappointing transfer window.
Kilman's a big loss, isn't he? They've replaced him. He's a big loss. So that's why they're conceding more goals. I think they've had a tough start. Arsenal away, Chelsea, which was the freaky game, and then Forest away. They got one.
And this doesn't get any easier, does it?
Yeah, and I think Gary O'Neill. I like Punya, Strand Larsen up front, but I think defensively they need to.
Well, Strand Larsen is one of those that actually they've actually done a bit of business that he is going to help them because he can be the figure, the figurehead at the top of the formation, can hold the ball up, can occupy defenders, and that does give licence to Cunha to get involved, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think defensively they need to tighten up, and I think Gary O'Neill will do it. I actually don't have them down as. I think it'll be a relegation battle, but I think they'll be.
I think I saw a stat actually that Opta have worked out that of all the teams in the Premier League, Wolves have got the most difficult start over the first 10 games of the season.
Good, nice to see that you actually paid attention to some sort of level of statage and did a bit of research. Well done.
Thank you.
In between trips to the races, the pub, wherever else you've been during international break. Because it's actually you did go to a football match. You left early, but you did go to a football match, didn't you?
I did. I went to England. Yeah,
you did.
Absolutely.
You did. Did you? How much of the game did you watch?
We left after 85 minutes.
How much did you watch? I imagine you were in the bar for quite a lot
absolutely not. No, I was educating the kids.
Oh, crikey.
Well, one of the issues that my oldest boy has got is that, ridiculously, he's quite small for his age. And I pointed to Angel Gomez and said, look, it doesn't have to necessarily prohibit you. Just watch how he plays the game, and you'll be all right.
Yeah. Southampton, Manchester United, 12:30 starts the weekend off in style. Game Day Live will take you around the grounds with Adrian Durham, Darren Bent and Troy Deeney, an all-star cast for Saturday's Around the Ground service. Our Saturday night, Bournemouth against Chelsea is live on talkSPORT. And on Sunday, we'll be live at Fratton Park. We've got the Wolves game and, of course, the North London derby to focus on this weekend on the Sunday session. That's it from us. We'll be back on Sunday night, Monday morning, to give you a review of all the weekend's action in the Premier League. Terry Gibson, thank you very much. Alex Crook, thank you very much. This has been Premier League All Access from talkSPORT.